Good morning and welcome to BeeferLink TV, your daily dose of industry information. This morning we welcome back Robert Windsor, Beefer's Member Policy and Compliance Director. This episode today is to talk about cargo safety, and this episode also follows on from a recent webinar we've held with Mike Yarwood from the TT Club. Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, certainly. The webinar was very well received, and it was a very interesting webinar about how to handle hazardous cargo as defined by the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code. And that looks specifically at what is defined as dangerous goods.
And there are several types, aren't there?
There are 9 classes in effect, if I remember correctly. I'm not an expert in dangerous goods. I made a career out about avoiding them. But certainly there are, various categories. And one of the big issues was lithium-ion batteries and how they were often concealed in almost like plain view on products, because most products you buy, whether it be for domestic or industrial purpose now, does include a lithium battery. And they're not declared always. So the premise I always work on is if you've got something that is cordless or whatever, ask the question, does this product contain a lithium battery?
Sure.
Because they are complex to handle in many ways, and there are specific regulations, whether you're handling them as a product, i.e. a battery itself, and or whether it's actually contained within the good, whether it be a laptop, a camera, a telephone or whatever. During the discussion, it became quite clear there are other types of product which, due to their nature, size, weight, shape, are actually going to pose a hazard to the people either using it, packing it, or moving it.
Sure.
Now, these loosely divided up into what I'm going to call 3 areas. And the first is what is called a reactive type of goods. Now, very often these will be defined within an IMDG code. Due to their size, I don't think they're actually moved by air, but you would have to check the IATA Dangerous Goods Manual to see if these are. Now, one of the common themes we've noticed is often they will self-combust. So we're looking at things like charcoal, carbon, coal, certain types of hay, wheat, all of which need to be moved in a certain way. All of them have got particular requirements, and that could be where they're stowed on the vessel, whether they're in a container which is vented, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So the guidance is when you are offered product, always ask whether or not, these do require any specialist handling.
Sure.
The next group of category is really what's going to cause spills or leaks. Now, one of the things which crops up quite often is wine. It's become quite common these days to move wine in a large polythene container, which is put within a 40-foot or a 20-foot, and these are just filled. Containers, by their very nature, are frequently reused. You can therefore have a problem with them if there's been a bit of, like the floor is a bit rough or splintered, or somebody's left a nail in and it bursts. And all of a sudden, you can have several thousand litres of wine spilling over the place. Actually, one of the worst instances I was personally involved in was a shipment of garlic oil in a 40-gallon drum. Nobody noticed it leaked until it got into a container, into a port, and people did notice because of the smell. It's awful. The other thing is things like animal skins can be a problem if they haven't been properly tanned and cured.
Sure.
So that's the other thing. Now, the other group of goods, which are those which, due to their weight or size or shape, some years ago, I was involved in what was called the Verified Gross Mass, which was an amendment to the SOLAS Convention. It was amendment number 6, if I remember correctly. The classic case is stone. People just keep loading this in, and what happens is it exceeds the safe loading weight for the container, and I've certainly seen cases where the floor's dropped out of a container.
Right.
The other thing which is to consider is the shape of the item being moved, and one of the issues is steel or wire on a drum. And I've seen too often people just putting a drum into a container. Now, these can be several tons in weight, so they don't stop. And the container's not been completely chocked in the correct way.
Right, okay.
And there's a fairly nasty video, actually, which you can look at. A lorry brakes very suddenly, and this steel drum literally just comes straight through the container, straight through the cab, and unfortunately the driver's killed. So if you are given things that look big, heavy, awkward shape, difficult to secure, think about it very carefully.
Sure.
Now, one of the things this is covered in is clause 15 of the BIFA standard trading conditions, and it actually reads, and if you don't mind, I'll just read it. It says, except pursuant to instructions previously received in writing. Now, obviously, that will include email today. And accepted in writing by the company, so in effect that's forming the contract. The company will not accept or deal with goods of a dangerous or damaging nature, nor with goods likely to harbour or encourage vermin or other pests, or with goods liable to taint or affect other goods. So actually, if you think about it, things like skins, wheat, all of which could harbour some sort of pest.
Sure.
And, it's just to highlight to members, just think about what you're being offered, and is it going to require any special handling?
Sure. So we'll make sure within the comments of the video, we'll make sure that we put a link into the Know Your Standard Trading Conditions.
Yes.
Again, that is behind our member portal, so you will need access to that in order to see it. But they'll be able to refer to that, won't they, for more information?
Yes, and there is an article in the next BIFA link on this subject.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Robert.
Okay, no trouble at all.
That's all for today's episode of BIFA Link TV, your daily dose of industry information.